Hi.
Welcome to the Louchen Bros podcast. This show is hosted by Brian Louchen
and Kevin Louchen.
And we are bros who talk about nerd stuff. What?
All right. Spoiler alert. All right, we're going to be talking about He-Man today. So if you haven't seen it, this is the new one, not the older one, He-Man and Masters of the Universe. So I'm about to spoil stuff right now. But, all right, so first, the story is basically on the planet of Eternia in the capital city of Eternos, everything's going great. Life is wonderful and peachy. And all of a sudden, there's this evil madman or thing called Skeletor that goes and attacks the city. And in the process of it, there's a young prince who's like, hey, I'm cool, but I don't know it yet. And he gets fucking just kicked down this warp portal because he's the potential to save the future. But he also gets this sword with him. So he gets in this portal and he goes and finds himself falling on the planet Earth. He also loses the sword, which is a big part to getting back. So he lives his life on the planet Earth for a little bit, becoming a nerd, and then he goes ahead and finds the sword eventually, and it's like a homing signal, and then he's then rescued and goes back to Eternia. Well, in the process, he is learning that he is not the superhero they were hoping he was going to be, but through the process of conflict and attacks and character development with some of the other heroes there, he eventually becomes into the form of the hero that we all knew he was going to be. He is then capable to fight off the evil Skeletor, and then as He-Man, he saves the day. And that is it in a nutshell. Let's put it that way. So before we get into the story at all, I sometimes absolutely love Easter eggs. And I was immediately in love with the fact that Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, the production company, used Cringer the Battle Cat as the cat in the opening right before the credits started. And I loved it. And I needed to state that how much I loved the little things like that. Because most people don't care, but I love when they do those things. All right, sorry. All right, Brian, go ahead. Get us into the story.
I was going to mention that in the special effects, but hey, if you want to jump in the gun with the Easter eggs, that's totally okay with me too, Kevin. But yes, that was definitely awesome. First thing I didn't like, Kevin, is why do they have to use Eternos, the capital city of the planet Eternia? Like, I don't even know if the cartoon uses Eternos, but I don't know. It's just
you didn't like the names?
It was so cringy to me. I was like, I'm stuck on Eternia. That was what the cartoon had. That's what the 1987 movie had. This one's Eternos. I'm just like, I am turned off because of this goddamn word.
It's so bad. I love it.
I was like, oh my god. But
I think they wanted to be more specific, maybe. But yeah, I don't think they needed to, but that's I think the driving force.
They wanted to be more dumb. No, but so I'm going to start with like the tone of the movie, and I actually learned a little bit more information this morning reading.
Okay, which
kind of pivoted. Now I'm like, God, why do I hate this movie so much? But now I understand a little bit more why. But so the tone of the movie, and it's classified with the genre as being a action comedy film. So the tone of the movie definitely has a lot of comedic elements, and the modern day vocabulary just didn't hit it with me. It definitely seemed off. I think with sticking with a action fantasy film would have definitely been better personally, but I don't know if it would have been marketed as well with today's generation now thinking back. But then when I found out, Carlos Huante was a creature designer, a former artist at Industrial Light and Magic, who's like the editing company for Star Wars. And he also worked on like the original Filmation cartoon. He was actually hired by the director Goyer to work on the film. But in the interview, he said that Sony felt that Goyer's script would be too expensive to bring to life because he intended for the movie to be on an epic scale of like the Lord of the Rings trilogy. And basically his ideas for the film would no longer be used. So based on that new information is like, they did want to go like epic fantasy like I wanted, but they had to pivot and change probably a basis of the script to make it more a comedy film. So I'm like, fuck, so
I don't think they're deciding to do one script versus the other is a factor to how we feel about the movie itself. That is their decision to make, right? You can choose to make a character something like that, and that says about it. If they had options to do it, that makes you think, would that have been a better option or not? But if they chose the option we got, that's the option we got. You're critiquing that option.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying, like, so the genre and that tone, just like I said, didn't hit it for me, Kev.
I had a lot of mixed feelings about this movie, and I like to consider myself a little bit of a comedy aficionado or whatever the word is. I love comedy. I've lived my life by it, hence my look. So it's one of those things where I love to laugh. It's one of my so motivating purposes on a daily basis. And I fucking hated this humor. Very, very much. So much. I thought... It's ironic, because Brian and I specifically, we went to this movie together, and I said, we're not going to talk about it. So everything he's saying now and I'm saying now, we both have no idea. All right.
Yeah, we saw the movie together,
and we didn't talk about it. We talked about the
we
Bears.
Did not. Yeah, we talked about the Bears and the ride home because we wanted to save it for this pod, and that's one thing that's very passionate as far as us giving you the raw feelings. Where me and Kevin don't know. This is not scripted. Like, we have our notes for ourselves for what we're going to be saying, but like, Kevin doesn't know, like, what my notes say. I don't know what Kevin's notes are going to say. The only thing we have is, like, a timeline of, like, okay, we're going to cover these things. That's it. Like, bullet points. That's it. So this is all
this is all fresh. So it's ironic, some of the stuff you just said, because I'm literally going to cover almost a kind of crazy cover. I thought the tone was the biggest issue for this movie. I'll cover specifics, but the tone was basically it. And it was the comedy aspect. Because it's not that it couldn't have comedy. It was misplaced and just terribly done. And maybe if they were angling to try to get younger generations, that could have been it. And if you say that, I think about a certain specific scene that makes me feel that way. But in general, I literally wrote down, maybe it wasn't here, maybe it was my initial notes, I thought this movie tone would have been perfect if they would have done it in the tone of Lord of the Rings. I literally said that, meaning it should have been an action adventure kind of medieval style like that, with a more serious tone. However, even in Lord of the Rings, they had comedy.
Agreed,
they
100%.
Did. So it wasn't that they didn't have it, it was the placement and how it was done. And I think that is where they extremely dropped the ball on this, because it did not work right. Even it
just felt forced. Like, it felt forced, and like they were trying to hit too much. And like I said, being that focal point of the comedy, and even if they would have pivoted and didn't get the budget of the special effects and stuff like that, they didn't have to go like Lord of the Rings style budget and go all out. They still could have used some of the old school elements that we talk about and do that hybrid special effects and, creature, and you know what I mean?
Okay. I don't remember He-Man the cartoon a lot. I remember the older movie a little bit better. That older movie had one area of a scene in the street where they did all the effects. Okay, that is not what they did in this one. They made a huge city, which is fair that they did that, but they didn't even need to do that. You really only needed Castle Grayskull, which mostly what they needed. And so if it was a budget thing, I think what I would say is they maybe used it in the wrong spots, and they could have stuck to, as you said, another script that maybe fit the tone better and would have been that. So I think the tone, because of the tone, I think it is where you're going to see a lot of my hate. I literally have a whole section of notes that I said they tried to be silly, and I said tone more like Lord of the Rings. I literally have it written, and it made, to me, just so bad in that regard, because a lot of the other elements I thought were actually pretty good.
Yeah, and being based on a comedy, you're gonna, like I said, if they would have gone more Lord of the Rings, or I'll say fantasy or adventure style, they could have done 30% of comedy, and it would have gone over so much better. In this film, they had a lot of comedy, and only 30% of it was actually good, in my opinion. Because they did have a couple one-liners that I thought that hit well, but they were too over the top and too much. And like I said, it felt forced a lot of times.
And so, I mean, when you get into the if you look at the story without the lines, I thought the story was solid. I thought what they did. There were a couple things that weren't great. Like, I get why they went to Earth, but the time on Earth kind of feels like they misuse of it. Like, they could have probably angled his life and lifestyle a little bit better. And here's one of the key things. They had him, to get into the story a little bit, obviously he's past the king, but he's essentially an adult at this point. He's at the gym, and he gets the cameo from Dolph Lundgren, which was amazing. I love that they did that little thing. That was a fun element. But he's in the gym. He's working out. He is a fit guy at that point. And then he is getting chased in the streets by that kind of gorilla-like monster. Yes, he is out of fucking breath, and he's barely been running. He doesn't seem to have the strength to do anything. He falls what looks like to be almost 20 feet from one higher thing to the other on his chest, and nothing is wrong with him. And it's just like, I don't know if that was the comedy element trying to play into place, but they made him appear like they wanted him to appear weak and kind of not able to, because he then, when he transitioned to the He-Man essentially form, when he had the sword, it was like, oh, now he has the strength. But they made him almost inept to a unhealthy degree. It's like they would have almost been better off doing what they did with Captain Avenger and made
Captain America. Exactly.
Captain America.
I was just thinking that, actually, Kevin, because the difference being this weakling to this bulkier guy and superhero would have made a lot more sense.
Like when they showed the actual animation when he was his form to become He-Man, they did show him increase in muscle and size and everything. The thing is, he already looked decently, like a decent shape, so it's not like it was growing huge. So once again, this guy that's in shape is not able to run up and down these streets without, I need a break. It was just so bad looking to me.
It didn't look much different other than he was wearing a barbarian outfit.
Exactly. But that's my point, is you didn't need to do that, increase his size to show his ineptitude. He just be like, I don't have that kind of power. And then, he's punching somebody regularly and he just, versus then he punches again as He-Man and he fucking flies. Like, they were kind of doing that, but they just, the way it was done, I think, was just terrible as far as that goes.
And we're being negative for good reason right now, but I'm not going to lie, Kevin. When the first time Adam said, I have the power and became He-Man and got his powers, I did have goosebumps, and I was like, let's fucking go.
That dude, it hit. It was definitely awesome. Anytime you hear that, and it's kind of amplified with the sound effects and everything like that, I have the power is a fucking thing. And with that said, we might jump around a little bit. This will add into the shit I was talking about. When Skeletor did it, I was so fucking pissed. I don't know if you want to get
the comedy thing.
Yes. Oh my! I have a list of things. We're here. Or we're just gonna this isn't everything. This is just some of the stuff I wrote down. That they were trying to make it funny, and there was a comedic aspect, but it was just not good. And this is somebody who loves stupid humor. I love stupid humor. You know that. And it's like, so these are some of the notes. When he's showing his ID, the idea of that is funny. It was just so badly done. Duncan's drunk and falling down antics. Talking to Trap Jaw. talking to Skeletor, trying to have a conversation and make things better. The Skeletor's "I have the power" scene, I fucking hated it so much. His war speech as he's about to go out.
The war seminar and team building.
Yeah, like the using the word war seminar did make me laugh. That made me laugh. But the speech itself I didn't like it. The jail escape when they're like trying to do that escape scene, all walking in line, and they just start coughing. It was, I think it was just done in such a manner. I don't know. I hated it. I absolutely fucking hated it. Not even just didn't have an emotion. It made me fucking mad. Like, that's not what it was supposed to do. I'm like, what the fuck are they doing? Like, I was angry. I mean, this isn't even funny. It just irrationally anger about something that, like, I've always enjoyed. I love the Masters of the Universe movie back. Was that that's the 90s, right? Or is that 87? I love that movie. I own that movie. I love that movie. I remember the cartoon vaguely, but I do remember. And it's just like, the tone of this sucked. One thing that I want to stand out, like, I know you don't have to have crazy details, but sometimes I harp on little details when I think they matter. How is the sword just fucking in this random ass statue of a Torah character? What the fuck is that? How did they find this random sword in the middle of nowhere? There's this character that is apparently something. He has to be part of a book, a game, or something like this. Has the exact sword versus, wouldn't he have a replica of the sword in the game, the movie, whatever that Torah character is? And yet he has the specific one they're looking for. How does this make sense? Where did they find that? Somebody just found it in a swamp and polished it the fuck up and give it to him? I fucking hated it.
You know what's worse than that, Kevin? When he was a kid and he had to take the sword out of the fucking the pedestal. And how is that kid able to pick up this giant ass sword what looks so small on the pedestal? And then when he picks it up, it looks like humongous for him.
But and I get, actually, the idea of him losing it tracks with good. That makes sense. But to just show up randomly in this guy's this
$300,
this stupid little thing, and just shows up in this, I was so fucking mad. And then the fight scene to get it out of it, like I said, it was like the equivalent of making him so inept, but it failed miserably. I'm telling you, I was so mad about that scene. I hated it.
You know what really made me, Kev, mad? So this is one thing that really kind of pissed me off in the movie. So I'm going to change gears on you a little bit, Kev. So Adam and...
No, we're still mad. You're not changing gears. We're right here.
Adam and Tila have this high sexual tension and love story throughout the whole movie. Adam is friend-zoned and not even getting a payoff with like a kiss or anything. Even at the end of the story, it was like a missed opportunity because they're building this up the whole movie. She's picking on him. He's drawn photos of him. They have all these moments. Like, why even do that in the first place? Like, I don't understand.
Okay. I know what you're saying, and I wasn't as hot about that. But I was like... At the same time, like, if you're making a love interest, why not do more? It doesn't mean they had to make out on film, but she could have like played him off in like a playing hard to get sort of thing. You know what I mean? Like they could have been like, well, no, you know, like when she says, yeah, we're friends, but they didn't follow back into maybe potential love interest later. They didn't do any of that. My thought is maybe they want to do it more later in a possible sequel.
Yeah, and I heard this was an origin story, which we'll kind of talk a little bit more about that later too.
Something I can understand. So, don't worry, there's more. So,
go ahead, Kev.
Okay, I've covered the shape things. I want to try to, you know, the one thing I said about Brian is I didn't want to try to talk about characters early, but I have to talk about this one in particular element because his character arc was terrible, and that is the character of Duncan, which is what was his name, At War Man or some At Arms Man,
Man at Arms,
or Man at Arms. Yes, I don't remember some of these names that I've been terrible about. I think his drunken element was exacerbated to the fact that I also began to hate his character. He failed in essence, and I get that. And he first off, I don't know how he's drinking the way he is in prison, in the jail cell, when there's no toilet like they make in Karen Mon. No, it was just one of those things where he's a constant drunk. And I understand that. He feels like a failure. But at the same time, they dragged it so hard. He didn't really show any signs of drinking. I think if this was supposed to be funny, it wasn't funny. It was just dumb. It was stupid. On top of that, like when he's in the starship being chased, she didn't want him to use any abilities to shoot. Just because he's a drunk, they could have used early signs of maybe he's shooting and missing and then just gets a lucky shot and then he's like, oh, he's building his credibility more and more. They just kept shooting it down. The character arc and how she felt about it, like she's or Duncan was supposed to be Tila's father. Just the arc between those two even was just so bad. They dragged it too long deep into the stories. I hated how they made him seem so inept and took him so long to come around. That was an element, like he should have been more serious tone and they just made him too goofy. And I think it was terrible and they could have done a lot better a lot sooner with his arc.
So, hot take for you, Kevin. With Duncan, I actually liked his character. And I was going to talk a little bit more about this in casting, but if I'm comparing this movie, and I know you said you didn't necessarily want to compare it to the 1987 movie, but I'm going to compare it to the 1987 movie in a sense of the supporting roles and cameos in this movie were done so much better as far as than the older movie, in my opinion, because, and I'll talk all about this a little bit more, but the casting and all the different actors that were supporting role characters, I felt even a couple minutes of screen time, they did such a better job. Like Man-at-Arms in the 1987 movie, I didn't even know who the hell that white guy was with the mustache. It didn't seem like he was a father figure or taking the lead or the character he was meant to play in the older movie as far as holding stuff down and being a mentor to him. It didn't feel like that in the original movie. In this movie, even though he was a drunkard and they probably stood on that story too long, the fact that he showed in the beginning of the movie when he was a kid and mentored him a little bit to get back up sort of thing, and even when they found him and he was a drunk, and even again, getting out of that and his daughter being mad at him, and later on, teaching Adam, like, again, these pep talks he didn't want to do that were terrible. Again, I was actually fine with his arc, but like I said, overall, not just him, but a lot of the supporting roles and cameos, I thought they did fucking phenomenally.
Yes, the visuals were so much better. The introduction to more characters, and the one thing I will push back on you as far as comparing to the other one, they did not have the budget to do that. This had a way bigger budget in proportion compared to them because they were trying to use Orko in the old one and they couldn't because it was just too much out of the budget. Like I said, that was just done in a little town. This one was done on a CGI level that was so much more massive. They had more to do with here. And once again, it wasn't about the look was better in this one compared to the old one.
So I think yes and no. Even then, with the special effects, Kevin, they could have used practical effects on some of the characters where I don't think it would have gone super out of budget as far as that. Like, even if they just had, I guess, mixing the practical effects with the costume and creature stuff, I'm sure they could have. I mean, they done it in, like, Labyrinth back then. They done it with Dark Crystal. So I'm thinking they still probably could have done something as far as that and still made it look decent.
But do you think that's a costume related issue? Do you think it's a character writing issue? Because what you seem to complain about is you didn't seem know who he was. Was that a look thing? Was that related to his lack of sort of mentoring and whatnot? That could have been more writing versus the actual.
I would say I would say
it was more the writing.
Yeah, I would say it was more the writing because they could have had writing / tone because they could have pulled him into being that mentor.
But at the same time, once again, he was already He-Man in the previous movie, whereas he's not in this one yet. So you needed more mentoring. At the same time, I'm going to transition to He-Man himself. another thing I hated about this was all of us. Okay, there's a level of which his strength isn't there. They're trying to allude to. Tell me how he gets onto a sort of air motorcycle and all of a sudden knows how to use it like a perfection. He knows how to drive it. They showed an element. He didn't even know how to drive it, and he's doing that. Would have been better if in the human Earth element they had him riding a motorcycle. That would make more sense. That would be a lot better. But or even a cat. That makes more sense because he has a battle cat. But they did none of that. And so when he goes on this little aircraft, he's all of a sudden driving it and knowing how to do that. And even the other spaceships. Tell me how that makes fucking sense. On top of that, tell me how he all of a sudden just becomes He-Man, right? And all of a sudden knows how to fight. That shouldn't have happened. Power is not the same as skill, and he didn't have it beforehand. He shouldn't have had it afterwards. Period. That was I think a huge element lacking, because if he knew how to fight, that'd be one thing. If he didn't have the power, and that they showed he didn't have the power, but he didn't know how to fight. He was constantly running away. Otherwise, he would have fought more. They made him too much of almost a pacifist, not knowing how to fight, almost basically a pussy. I mean, that's basically what they made him. And then all of a sudden, he's super confident and can fight and has skill, both with his bare hands and with the sword. What the fuck are we doing?
He's the chosen one, Kevin.
The chosen one is not the same as having skills prior hand, then all of a sudden learning it like this is Battlefield Earth and knowing how to do anything, or the Matrix, and I just shoved something in my face and uploaded it. I'm that part, once again, was a terrible perspective. They could have done certain things. Like if you knew you were supposed to be the chosen one, as he knew on Earth, as that element where he was telling the girl on a date, that was like not a laugh out loud moment of funny, but it was a funny element. That was fine. But he's telling the story as he knows he's the chosen one, yet he does nothing to prepare himself other than be weak at the gym. How does this make sense? There's no, like, you could have made, they tried to focus on making him seem inept too much to the point where he wasn't trying to build his life to be the chosen one. I didn't like that. I thought it was terrible for character development. And that's not even trying to be funny. It just wasn't good as far as that. And then Skeletor. I think in general, his character arc was fine. But going back to the comedy thing, they tried to make him too funny. And I didn't like that element of it. Of, like I said, I have the power and nothing happens. I fucking hated some of that stuff. The spaceship fighting, the fighting scenes themselves, though, even if you consider the fact that he has these skills, all of the fighting scenes almost across the board, I thought were done pretty fucking good, though.
Agreed.
I think watching that happen was pretty sweet. There's one thing tied into the trying to be funny thing I didn't like, and that's when he picked up the one guy and started using him like a kind of a weapon almost. I didn't hate that he used that. I hated that the guy was screaming, because that was the part that, once again, it was trying to be funny, and I don't know. I don't know if I was just not in the right mentality, and I'm almost be intrigued to see this later down the road just to see how I feel about it. But it was like they wanted it to be funny. I just didn't take it as funny. I found it as just stupid. And so that was the biggest thing that kind of stood out with the fighting as far as that goes. Let me see.
Kevin's ready to keep going.
Dude, I got... But they're not crazy things, but some of them... I thought the connection with the king and the queen were not good. They didn't really seem like great parents. Like, there's like no connectivity. I didn't feel the emotional connection there, and I didn't feel it with the king and the queen either. You know, usually you get a little bit more thing there. I didn't think nothing. On top of it, why keep them alive? I don't... Did Skeletor think that he would use them as bait potentially in the future? I don't know. It just felt like there wasn't a reason necessarily to keep them alive.
I read this morning that the king was Dolph Lundgren was originally going to be casted as the king.
That would have been cooler. That would have definitely been cooler.
So I was like,
way fucking better.
Cool. But yeah, it did seem like He-Man, Adam had different interactions with his parents, but they never seemed like they were together for some reason. Like they were divorced or something like that. So like, I don't know. Like I was like, what's going on here? You know? So but yeah, it was definitely like there was no so you know how when characters have this synergy and they mesh well together. It didn't seem like it meshed well, like with the parents and him.
No, exactly. Like there's no emotional tie that you got from watching He-Man with the parents. A little bit because he did, but like when they were on screen together, there was nothing there. You know what I mean? Like I didn't feel that at any part one of those three. I still have some nitpicking of some other scenes unless you want to focus on that a little more.
I mean, does it have to do with story, the plot?
This is the story. Yeah, this is all story stuff.
Yeah, that's what we're doing.
All right, well, the flashbacks I fucking hated. And I hated it because they meant it to be funny with showing Skeletor on planet Earth dressed up in normal human clothes, but I absolutely fucking hated it.
So the flashbacks I actually put into like special effects and editing, I guess. And so I actually
But part of the story I didn't like. That's what I'm saying. The story itself, having those, I didn't like Skeletor coming in and trying to... I know why he was there. And I'm not saying that that's wrong, but it would have been better if it wasn't Skeletor. It was just those characters in his life telling him...
You didn't like Skeletor and Puppenheim in the gym, Kev?
But once again, that ties to trying to be funny, and I didn't find it funny. I found it dumb as shit. Him in a suit, once again, was trying to be funny in the office. I found dumb as shit. Yeah. I didn't.
They were definitely trying to be fun or funny, but
I didn't take that as it. I don't know. Maybe, like I said, maybe our perspective is we wanted an epic action adventure, and they just tried to make it more funny, and that's part of why I think a lot of my critique is falling flat on the tone, like we've talked about. But like I absolutely hated that. How about some other things with the fighting? How about Teela just sitting around watching them fucking fight for no fucking reason? Because her and Evil Lynn were done fighting, and they just fucking were like, oh, let's put my hand up on my chin and just watch these little guys fight over here. What the fuck are you doing? Like, you should be doing something, not just watching. Like, like it would be better if she tried jumping in and Skeletor said, get the fuck out of here, knocked her out, and so on, whatever. Like, she's just standing there, and they showed a clip of her like once or twice. At the same time, they show He-Man just run and grab the Sword of Power when it's on the thing, and Skeletor's right next to him and just goes, I'm just going to watch him go pick up the sword that I wanted to get. Like that, how does that make fucking sense? That was dumb as shit too. Like, what are we doing? Like, you should have had him, because there was an explosion, he's like distracted and doesn't see this giant of a human running by him? I mean, even then later, like, Skeletor stabs him with the Sword of Power. All right, and he's supposed to die. But if he is the element that is the good, and so he makes the sword come back to life, how the fuck do you kill He-Man? Is he, like, he can't die now? Or it only happened that way because he got stabbed with the Sword of Power? If he would have got stabbed with a fucking arrow, he would die, because that's not going to all of a sudden morph it back into the sword. Like, there's no sort of element that I liked about that. And I don't think it kind of creates an element like of longevity, because at this point he seems like he could never die.
Adam is the vessel.
I get that, but he shouldn't be like impervious to being killed, because they basically made him seem that way.
Agreed.
So once again, that's part of the story element I didn't like. Right, going back. Trying to talk to Skeletor. Oh, it's past that point of talking. I fucking tear him out. I fucking hated it. There's a human. There's the power surge of when He-Man's fighting him, and it like flashes out past Castle Grayskull and into everything everywhere
like
else.
Like a nuke,
right? And he's down on the ground. This just happens. Even He-Man's on the ground. A second later on camera, Teela's like, trying to help him up. That bitch would have been flown 500 miles! What's she doing picking him up? Why is that? This is so stupid. It's like, it's not even funny. It's like, making me so angry because it doesn't make sense at all. It was just so bad filming. She looked like nothing happened to her, and whatever. 6 months later, I don't know if you know this, Brian, you can rebuild a whole kingdom that's already been destroyed 6 months later, because that's what they did. Completely rebuilt, nothing wrong, nothing being in progress, just completely rebuilt.
Eternos.
It's apparently eternally retarded. I hated it. So then eventually, just my last critique of the whole story as it ties into, I didn't hate the Skeletor potentially coming back. I think had to be an element of that, but I actually liked how they kind of did the Easter egg of his sister, as they've kind of mentioned, and so I thought that was kind of a cool element. Once again, potentially setting up sequel stuff as we were talking about, but man, did a lot of this story shit the bed in my opinion.
Shit the bed.
Shit the
bed. So you ready to rate this?
All right, I'm sorry. I had to get most of that off my chest. All right, ready?
Thumbs down.
Angle down. Angle down. Maybe not a pure down, but definitely at least like a 16, 17% downward as far as that goes. All right, so moving on to some characters.
Oh, wait, we forgot quotes.
No, well, I mean, that can come in at any point.
By the power of Grayskull, I have the power. That's Skeletor. Oh, balls.
It's not that he tried to do that. It's that they tried to make it funny. There were too many times they tried to just be goofy with it, and I just wanted to if I could have kicked the screen, I fucking would have.
Let's fist some bad guys.
There was definitely some sexual undertone.
Put your neck away.
There was some sexual undertone with some of these other characters. I assume that was by design. I didn't hate that. They didn't really make me laugh, but I was like, yeah, they were trying to make that sexual punny kind of thing.
So yeah, we can go to casting.
Let's start from the top. All right, for casting, He-Man. I will say this. I think he was a perfect casting. I absolutely loved, what's his name? It's Nicholas Galitzine. I'm sorry, I'm butchering that. But I thought he was a perfect He-Man. I really do. I thought his acting was great for it. I think the character direction they gave him was terrible. But I thought he looked the part, he played the part, and he had everything I think He-Man needed. I think the script fucking failed him.
Yeah, I mean, enough said. I wouldn't say any different. He actually kind of looks like the comedian Matt Rife, actually, which I think is.
I don't think so. I don't. No, but he's a solid guy. He looks strong. He looks like he's a
modern day He-Man.
Yeah. I think he was great. You could have gone way bigger as a person actor. I just think he was. I think he was appropriate. I think it was a great casting as far as that goes. For Tila, Camila Mendez, I thought she was a great casting as well. I think she played the Tila character about as good as you expect it. I don't really remember anything from the past. I just thought she played a great supporting cast. She was talented. She still showed that she was a warrior fighter. I think for her role and character, I thought it was great.
Yeah, as far as I mentioned earlier, supporting roles and cameos, 95% of them were absolutely solid, including her.
All right, let's pivot. Skeletor, you go first.
So I didn't like Skeletor. He was one of the castings I did not like, and I think that was because of the writing, because of the actual tone. The special effects of his face looked absolutely perfect. That is one of the castings I did not like.
So, first off, Jared Leto was the voice of him, but I don't think he played the physical parts. I thought Jared Leto did a fine job. Nothing great, nothing. I think he in general gets a lot of hate from a lot of fans. I don't think it's well deserved. I actually think he's a very solid, good actor. I think people don't like his antics outside of the actual film, and so they take it out on his characters that is not well deserved, in my opinion. I think he was fine, but once again, the writing trying to make him do silly things constantly was not his design. That's designed by the writing, and I think it was terrible. Like I said, he did a scene where he holds up the sword. I have the power. He's like, I have the power. It's not working. And he almost throwing a fit like a baby. I fucking hated it. I can't be more hate. Like, I am hater ball right now from Dave Chappelle so hard. I hated it so much.
Let me say this, Kev. I will say the outside stuff or whatever with Jared Leto, I don't follow any of that stuff. And I think, as you said, the writing and tone of it, I don't care who they casted for it. I don't think it was going to be good. Just of the way the writing and tone was.
Absolutely.
They could have casted a nobody, and I still think it would have been bad because of how they were trying to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It had nothing to do with Jared Leto. Again, I didn't like his voice for the part, so that's one aspect.
Yeah, it could have been
the
a little
outside
higher.
stuff, I don't care. Even again, I like the 1987 Skeletor as far as that was different. It wasn't high pitched, but it was more your
menacing,
monotone-ish. So again, I realized this could be a different take, but like I said, I don't care who the actor was going to be for Skeletor. The tone and writing killed it for me.
With that, what I just meant by stating Jared Leto was that my opinion is he gets overly criticized. So even if it was a nobody and you didn't like it because of that, some people are going to not like it more just knowing that it was Jared Leto. And he does get unfairly criticized in certain ways. I would have enjoyed a little higher pitched Skeletor. Yes, exactly. I would have enjoyed a little higher pitched Skeletor as it hits more home with me as how I remember it. But I don't think his voice was an issue. I think it was the writing, because like that had everything to do with how he was going to act and his mannerisms and stuff like that. So I did not like that. I thought his thing. But there is a worse casting for me. And I think the worst casting in this whole thing, even though a lot of the supporting characters are great, I think Evelyn's casting and portrayal was the worst character portrayal in this whole thing. I don't know much about Alison Brie, but I hated her depiction of how she looked. Now, that's not necessarily always on her, right? That there's things with the writing that go with that. She had blonde hair. Maybe that shouldn't matter, but it fucking mattered to me. I thought it didn't match the costume. I fucking hated that. Her portrayal almost seemed like she was trying to be... I just, once again, didn't come off as evil. It came off as snobby almost in that. And I just couldn't stand her character. When she was on screen, it just pissed me off so much. I don't know what it was, but I hated her portrayal of Evelyn so much. And it really was bothersome for me.
Yeah, now that I think about it, yeah, she did have the blonde hair, but then did her, hat fall off, or was she wearing a wig? I don't know. It seemed weird at one point, but now I think back, yeah, the Evelyn wasn't as menacing as far as that. I mean, she seemed kind of too cute, even though the 1987 version was an attractive woman. Yeah, something kind of felt off about that, but one character I didn't like was the sorceress, because I felt the chick that came from Gotham played it. Yeah. Very attractive woman. When the sorceress, you would think, is going to be an older woman, wise, that sort of thing. That, to me, didn't fit the character. For her.
I could see you wanting to see almost more age. Like, whether it's gray hair, whether
kind of
it's
like Evelyn. See, she would think she's a little bit older and wiser as well, too. She probably was too young. Again, this was supposed to be kind of an origin story, so if they were going that aspect, I get it.
But yeah, the sorceress is already old as to begin with. She's ancient. I mean, I didn't hate that so much. I get why you don't like it, and I can appreciate that. I think her role was so nominal that I didn't have a huge issue with it. Like a lot of the supporting characters, like Fisto and
Ram Man.
Even was it Lockjaw? Like their characters, I think portrayals were fucking amazing. All of them. I think the line lines, like, you know, and they have some sexual puns and stuff. That, like, that's fine. It didn't really land with me, but it was fine. I think the other interesting, circling back a little bit to Duncan, okay, and this is a minor tidbit, but it's just a note. As I've mentioned in the previous, I am a stickler for wanting my characters to look like a characters, and I'm not trying to make this sound terrible. The character is originally white, and Idris Elba is an amazing actor. He's black. Not that big of a deal, because I actually think he looks the part outside of that. He played the part to the great degree. He's an amazing actor. But I do get, like, you know, when Kingpin was black and Daredevil, like, it's not who it is. It's just the element that it's designed a certain way. As I mentioned before, these are amazing actors. Idris Elba is one of my favorite actors of all time. That's just like, okay, you know, that wasn't the end of the world for me at all, because I think his job was amazing. He's a phenomenal actor. It was, as I mentioned, the biggest thing I had with him was this character arc. It was terrible. He once again, like He-Man, he seemed like after he fallen with his mentality, it's like they had almost kept him down too long. He was inept. It's like, I don't even know how he come out of it. Like, they didn't really inspire me that they were trying to pull him out of it quicker, and they should have. I think if it would have been a lot shorter, I think it would have been so much better for his arc. It's like, how did he just at the last minute do that? If anything, when that ship crashed, he should have been putting it together right by that time or whatnot, knowing that He-Man is back, you know, and realizing, hey, do you know how to fight? Well, they could at least been working on some technique there with hand-to-hand combat or swordsmanship. That would have made, even if it would have been a quick transition, it would at least gave it some feel like, okay, he's doing at least some training versus never had anything, and then all of a sudden can fucking sword wield and fight Skeletor, who's been doing it his whole life. Like, that's the stuff I think character-wise, they didn't help out these actors at all. And as Brian said, with some of them, it's not going to matter who the actor was. The King and Queen were both almost, I don't even know why they're in the movie. Like, they had no sort of, they didn't hit home at all. I think if maybe that was by design. So
they were placeholders, kind of.
Maybe that's what it was. But the King had so much. But that's, if they were going to consider Dolph Lundgren, it would have had that much more hitting in the feels and having a more momentous occasion when the king is dying, which, once again, circling back, I forgot about this. Why is he allowed to talk to the king for like fucking 3 minutes, and Skeletor then just comes up and conveniently knocks him out as soon as the dad is dead? Like, that stuff is stupid. They could have made Skeletor at least under some rubble and getting up or something. There's just like some of this, like, it makes it look like, oh, the because
realism of it.
Yeah, this scene is happening, so everyone's got to stop what they're doing and just stare. Oh, I think they're done talking. Now I can go and do my action as I need to do. That was the appeal of it to me, and overall I hate it. But I think that's really more of a critique of the writing as far as that goes. The She-Ra kind of reference, I think. I mean, once again, you didn't see anybody really. You just saw the character's look and what she means, and I think that will wait for another time. But I thought it was definitely interesting that they added her, even if for the brief moment at the end.
Yeah, that's teasing, obviously, or their own movie for that, depending probably on how well this one does, and then obviously Orko, which I thought was also done really well.
Yes, and I think if you get more of Orko, what I did read up on him, because I couldn't remember some of his stuff, is from the original cartoon. They actually, he's a magician that when he tried to use his powers, he was the comic relief. Like, so you try to make a spell, and a lot of times it backfired. Like, that's how they could have done this. I don't think the comedy should have been focused as much on He-Man as they did, as it could have been other characters that were more the spoof. Like making Fisto make the sexual puns. If he, like, some of those characters, or even more specific ones, were versus the main characters, I think just killed the tone of it, or specific parts in the movie versus dragged throughout the whole storyline, throughout the whole movie, where He-Man's making jokes and stuff like that. Like the element that these generations don't like with the whole idea of working at an office and not having maybe some sort of future element, and then making fun of that both with how he approached his talk with these people and try to use your words to solve problems. I get the concept of it, but in the reality of watching it in the film, it was terribly done. Maybe that's all it was, or just the concept of it's terrible because the idea of a man using his words just in the heat of a battle versus Skeletor, it just was a bad it was a bad fit.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like with the tone of the movie just being a comedy, every character was trying to one-up each other with the comedy, and it kept failing so
fucking bad.
Instead of, like you said, the main characters, the protagonist and the antagonist, didn't need to have any comedy, or maybe one or two lines, not every other line. They're trying to do that, versus, like you said, some of these secondary characters could have had the comedy, and it would have been, I feel like, more balanced of a movie, and I think it just went too over the top for me. So, I mean, that's pretty much,
characters
all I had in regards to kind of characters. I mean, they had, again, his minions, like Pig Boy and Moss Man, and like I said, all of those secondary characters, I think, did a really good job.
Yeah, like I said, the characters seemed to fit. They looked the part. They had the part. Like, I mean, you wouldn't be upset by the portrayal of the characters as far as looks-wise. It was really what they wanted them to do, and that's where I think the issue was. So
yeah, and they had such little screen time, but in that screen time, it like meant something, because it was, again, either a couple seconds or a couple minutes. Again, whether it was the bounty hunter or the king, or, you know, even the goat man who looked like the demon character. Again, it made sense as far as what they said or did with that screen time, and that fit fine, which that's why I didn't have any issues with that.
All right, so I think I'm ready to vote if you are.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna go.
All right,
I'm gonna go a little.
I'm going a little positive.
Yeah, a little
I thought the casting overall was pretty freaking good, as we have mentioned. So, moving on to the best category, music. So I thought, if they would have done what I feel like they were going for, it would have been a little bit better. And what I gathered is this was like a rock anthem of a movie. And they had definitely scenes of it. And they were going to go, I literally had I was like, are we watching the movie The Flash from way back in the day? Because they had literally Queen singing or some of the songs from the artist Queen, and like during the jail escape and everything, and I'm like, this is like Flash, like I got so hardcore vibes of that happening, and it's like, if they actually would have went in that element a little bit more, I think it would have done better. But it really was just a few select scenes where they used that element. It's like, now that I think about it, it's like they try to tie some like 80 twists, because this is like an 80s remnant story and development from originally, the cartoon and all that, into nowadays, mixing with those, like I said, The Office and whatnot, but they didn't twist it very well. And so that's why I think this might have been bad. But the rock element, like I said, like a rock show, almost like a power ballad of a movie, I actually was intrigued by it, and I was relatively impressed. I thought they did that element kind of well. Outside of that, I don't really have any thoughts.
Sound of Music. Okay, so they didn't have like an iconic or good theme strong intro, so automatically they're losing points with me.
Hey, that's agreed.
When they were like that scene where they were breaking down the jail cell, which Kevin mentioned, which was so bad, what made it even worse is they had that stupidest fucking song playing, like, the Princes of the Universe, whatever the fuck, some garbage they were saying, and it was just like, oh my god.
But it was like a rock thing. That's what I'm saying.
It was so bad.
It was bad, but it was like...
It was bad. Like, even the fight scenes, were choreographed so well in this movie. And they had, like, okay music. I do remember one of them actually having, like, building tension and up-tempo, which I'm like, oh my god, it actually fits. And then they did have music from the cartoon at the end of the movie, so that was actually good. But overall, I'm ready to vote on it.
All right, ready? No theme song, so I'm sticking to just mid at best.
I'm going pointing down a little bit. I just
they didn't have the song stuff. They could have used a little bit more, but like I said, the rock element theme, I was like, okay, this is kind of entertaining if they like the idea of like the 80s style. But like I said, they try to modernize it, and that's where I think they just it's like they partially did it and they needed to do more. But
so let's move on to special effects, visuals, wardrobe, editing. Kevin, where were you sticking with this? I know you kind of covered a bit of it a little bit earlier, a little bit.
I think for the most part, it looks all pretty much fine. I think the biggest thing that was standing out because he was such a big character was Skeletor. I know you touched a little bit about it, but I want to watch for the sound, for the visuals. So I think his look was good outside of his face. Okay. I think his face is, I like the red eye touch, how they did that. That was good. But when he was using his jaw and stuff like that, I don't know. I think they could have almost went with like a mask CGI hybrid a little bit more because it just looked fully CGI. Like if they could have used like the old mask sort of style where it was like literally a skull, it looked like face with a bunch of like.
They even talked about it being gold actually, and it got declined by.
Yeah, I wouldn't like gold.
Yeah, as far as a gold face.
But
yeah.
I think if they would have used like some sort of latex or something and then highlighted it a little bit more, I think the jaw being separate could have been fine, like it was. But they should have used a mask for it and then just highlighted it and blackened around it so the lower jaw was separate. I think.
It was too big. Like,
well, I mean, I don't think it was too big. But when he was fighting and he was punching the jaw, and it was like literally off his like face,
the slow motion effect,
like that stuff didn't look good. I did not like that. But you know, for the most part, that was probably my biggest critique of the special effects. Oh yeah. I just randomly remembered him catching that goddamn saw ship with his hands, just so randomly. Like, why the fuck did that? What the fuck is that?
Yes,
that was partial special effects, but part of this like story. Once again, he all of a sudden has the confidence to fucking catch a spinning spaceship blade. Dude, what the fuck are we doing here? Like, that's not even funny. It's dumb. It's like, this is, like, it's a sci-fi. It's not necessarily supposed to be believable in a sense, but if you're making it, like, in a reality-like world, a live-action thing, you're trying to make it believable. And that is not even close. It was just so bad. It was that
You want to talk about bad, Kev? Let's talk about the first portal ride he took after leaving Eternos to go back to Earth. It was like he was fucking surfing through the fucking portal. Like, he could control himself so good.
Brian, have you never been portal surfing before?
Yeah, portal surfing. All, you know, like... Okay, the wardrobe of all the characters, though, I thought was perfect. Like, the costume design was on fucking point. Again, you kind of already mentioned as far as Cringer, as far as in the opening credits... That was amazing.
His detail was pretty good. I think you could tell a little bit it was a little more CGI than you expected.
Yeah, I did not. But I wish they would have gone more realistic.
Yeah, but he did look really good for the most part.
Yeah, I wish they would have had the battle cat more, other than the ending scene.
Yes, I actually forgot.
But again, with it being an origin story, they weren't going to have a lot of him. Versus, again, if Kevin talked about if they have a sequel, that's where obviously that would show up more. But again, I would have liked to see the Battle Cat shit more. Again, the fighting sequences were really fucking good. Like, I didn't see anything I didn't like. I even liked when Adam was like blocking shit with his gauntlets and shit. I'm like, that is actually makes a lot of sense and really fucking cool.
I agree.
I did like that. The spinning of the blades, stopping that machine was so
fucking
so fucking bad. I liked seeing the different skulls when you were in Stake Mountain with like the unicorn and the human. I don't know what the other skulls were in there. Probably different beasts of some kind.
Yeah, that
was really cool. It kind of gave me that Predator vibe, like when you're. That
didn't really resonate with me, but I mean, I it looked good. I didn't think nothing of it. That's all.
Yeah, I know. I thought that was actually really cool. Obviously, the flashback scenes were a little fun, but like I said, we kind of already talked about that. Yeah, and then like the sorcerer saying, "You have the power, not the sword. Adam's the vessel." And then the sword magically reforms itself.
After being stabbed in his goddamn chest.
So, you know, and then the slow motion punches were unnecessary for the fight. Like, I know they were trying to do. It just didn't hit with me. Like, and we already talked about the end credit scenes, which I thought were really good with She-Ra, which is his twin sister, and then Orko. So like, again, there were elements of the movie that were done good, and then it kind of like balanced it out with shit, you know what I mean? So if that makes sense, you know? Like, so it's like, this could have been such a good movie, but then we have to make it shitty so you don't like it as much.
Yeah, we want you to be interested enough to watch it, but not interested enough to like it. That's basically what it feels like. And the worst part is, it feels like it was mostly the writing, even on a smaller budget. If they would have just changed these scenes with some of their tones and direction, I think it could have been astronomically better. And like I didn't go into this expecting to see a comedy. Maybe that's where I was wrong. I expected maybe some laughs, but like, I wanted an action film, and this felt like it was trying to do stand-up comedy, and it was just like, it was terrible. And here's the worst part is it may just be me, and maybe even you, that feel this way, because I remember listening to the theater thinking about, I'm like, watching the scene, I'm like, that's not fucking funny. And I do remember hearing people laugh more often than not. So maybe we just went into it thinking the wrong thing, but I did not expect that crap. I'm sorry. It was terrible for me.
There was people clapping
at the end. I was like, what?
I was like, again, it has some good and some bad, so it was probably a fine / good movie, 6 out of 7, but like, it wasn't something that blew me away. But again, like, younger generation might have a different opinion about it, because again, have they seen the original movie? Have they seen the cartoons? Maybe not, you know, so they're gonna have a kind of a different take, in a sense, I think.
Maybe it's like, once again, the humor itself. If I think about the old one, it had humor in it, but it was probably a little drier. Dolph Lundgren isn't exactly a slapstick kind of comedy guy, but he said some funny lines in his eyes. He gets these like smirks and smears, right? So maybe it was more or less, it wasn't necessarily the humor couldn't be there. It was just a manner of like, I wanted it maybe a little drier, because that gives more indication that it's more of an action film, and it just has some like I said, you have a character or two that's just goofy and dumb. That's one thing, but like, when the main character's that, and the tone and the action itself is like, they're also supposed to be a badass. Like, what are we doing here? I think it was like two different kind of idea of directions they just smashed together and thought it would be fine, and it was not at all, in my opinion, at all. It was bad.
Yeah, and that's where I think, the writing and the tone of it, because they could have flipped it and made it such a better movie. It had like 75% comedy and like 25% adventure or fantasy, right? If they would have flipped that and had it the reverse and had it more adventure, fantasy, 75% and 25% comedy, Kevin, this would have been, I don't want to say an entirely different movie, but an entirely like better movie.
You know what it would have been? It would have been an entirely different feel. It would it really, you would have felt like so much better and good about, like, that was a fucking gem. I think it wouldn't have been perfect by any means, but I think you would have felt so much better about wanting to see a sequel and eager to see a sequel. Now I don't even care if they make a second fucking film. So we digress a little bit, because this is obviously the specific area we have a huge issue with, but the special effects overall, I think, landed pretty good. I think there were elements that could have been better, but I want to vote and not get too far off on that topic, unless you want to
no, let's go ahead and rate special effects, visuals, wardrobe, editing. I'm gonna go slightly thumbs up. Thumbs up.
Yeah, I got a 45. I got a 45 up. I got a 45.
45 sounds solid.
All right,
so let's wrap it up with the emotional connection and rewatchability.
So I think I personally am intrigued to maybe try watching this again down the road. I want to see, after I kind of know the expectation of how they want the film to be, I want to see if watching this again, if maybe I just had the wrong mindset for it. To consider like, hey, but I don't want to do it like next week. I want to give it like a good year and really let like me kind of forget some of the details and let like, okay, I know my expectation is this supposed to be almost a slapstick, which I think is the missing the mark with the comedy. So, but is it that I just didn't like it because I didn't expect it, or is it the comedy hitting wrong or not? And I think it's the comedy's hitting wrong versus my expectation was so bad, because I usually try to have very little expectation so that I don't have this, oh, they ruined my movie.
Oh, and I'm going to want to see it again never, Kevin, and you're going to have the same experience when you rewatch it in a year or 10.
Well, I mean, but, I if they have a sequel, I'll definitely want to watch it again, because I will want to watch the sequel to see, hey, if they sucked or not. Now, if the sequel sucked too, then I'm like, all right, I don't have to watch any more of these.
Yeah, it doesn't deserve a sequel watch from me. So let's see what the critics are saying. On review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes, 66% reviews are positive, with an average rating of 6.1 out of 10.
I think that's high for me.
Consensus reads, by the power of Grayskull and with a little help from its self-depreciating script and spirited cast, Masters of the Universe is a delightful adventure that finds a humanity in He-Man. Critics praised Knight's direction, the performances of the cast, action sequences, and nostalgic tone, with some were divided over its humor, pacing, and screenplay. Kyle Smith of the Wall Street Journal described it as a 2-hour-plus comedy and effects bonanza whose fantasy images are more notable for their quantity than quality, like a digital Golden Corral.
A digital Golden Corral.
Benjamin Lee of The Guardian gave the film 2 out of 5 stars, stating, Amazon's head-scratching $200 million budgeted misfire fails to explain why so much time and money and effort has been wasted in a labored attempt to resurrect the toy IP very few people still care about.
I don't know. They came back with the cartoon a few years ago. It seemed like they got toys in the store. It seems like it's got popularity. But trying to do this bullshit, it definitely wouldn't be drawn in me again. I'll tell you that.
Facts.
So, I mean, overall, I said what I said with this. I think, I'm... ready to vote on it. If you're ready to vote on it, I don't know if you got any more quotes.
No, I'm ready to vote, Kev.
All right. Wait, you know what? There is one last tidbit I want to circle back to.
We have to?
The guy on Earth. The roommate. He was meant to be a little bit of a comic relief, and he kept watching these movies, and I do believe he was watching The Notebook. I don't know if I thought it was The Notebook.
He was watching all romantic.
Yes, and he goes, but they belong together, and he's crying. I was like, okay, see, that would have been more appropriate for your comedy relief.
Agreed.
Like, that was, you didn't have it as a main character, so you didn't have to worry about it messing with it. It was goofy and whatever, and even the whole bringing them back to Eternia later on. So, see, I told you I wasn't lying. Like, I was fine with that. Like, that's an element that would be fine if it wasn't there, but it was fine that it was. Like, it had just an interesting thing. So, I think you can have things like that, but when it transpired over, that's that to the main plot and the main characters, I think that's where the issue was.
You know who we forgot to talk about, Kevin, casting? Adam's boss on Earth, Susie, the black lesbian
I didn't forget.
lady. She was fucking hilarious. I thought she was funny.
But that would have been fine too. Like, I have no quarrels with that, and even how they had her as part of the flashback. Once again, I didn't like the flashback, but the way they used her was fine. She was a nice little tidbit in a character where you wanted to have a little bit of comedy. Sure, I think a lot of people can relate to that because there's probably a lot of Office people that do that. But
she was catching them looking up sword pictures.
Like, that was funny. That was funny.
What?
Yeah, you probably relate too hard to that. Like you do. I don't work at an office like that, but
But I don't look at swords at work.
Yeah, I believe you do look at swords at work.
I only have 2 on my walls.
So it was more misfires than hits. You know what I mean? In land. So, but all right, you ready to vote?
Yeah.
All right. Right.
Thumbs down. Yeah, thumbs down.
I'm doing like 11% down. Like 11% down, just because I don't love it, but I'm intrigued. I feel like in a second watch, I'd feel a little more confident whether it's going to go farther down or at least go mid. I don't think I'll ever love it because I don't feel like that comedy is going to go over on me at all. So
I'm curious about this rewatch.
I want to do a rewatch at some point. You know what? The thing is, this is so noted of a topic for us because we've seen it together. We're talking about it here on the pod. I feel like down the road, when I eventually hit it, I'll hit you on some random Wednesday and be like, the movie's fucking trash, bro. I fucking hate it. Like, I think that's probably what's going to happen because I'll be just reiterating it. But yeah, I'll give it a watch again, but it's one of those things I wouldn't recommend to even watch. That's kind of what it is until I see a second time. You know,
I think I would have liked this movie better if I got high as fuck, Kevin, because then I wouldn't care about the comedy.
You know, the comedy might have made you laugh, actually.
Exactly.
Because you weren't thinking about the story.
It's so stupid. Exactly. I wouldn't have been thinking about
that guy is wrestling a statue. Oh, this is so funny. Oh, my God.
Exactly. I think I wasn't high. That's why I didn't like the movie.
But that, I mean, I think even when you're high, you could still notice some details. And
I don't know.
Might be like,
depends on how high.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Because I'm not going to care. I'd be like, that was fucking hilarious.
What are you, on angel dust? You don't even see things. You're just watching color. You're like, oh, pretty colors.
All right, so overall rating, Kevin?
Yeah, we're down.
Yeah, we're definitely down for me.
I'm
still going double down. Double down.
All right. Real question. What's better, this or Battlefield Earth?
Oh my God!
Like if you're saying 2 thumbs down,
no, not 2 thumbs down. Just
okay,
single.
Because you gave Battlefield Earth 2 thumbs down, and I told you I'd seen worse. This isn't worse, but I'm telling you, it's out there.
I could watch this movie again. I can't watch Battlefield Earth again. It would have taken me 3 times to get through it, bro. That was painful.
Oh man,
so
you just really liked the movie, I thought. So, anyways, yeah, He-Man.
I mean, Kurt, you had freaking so much laughing from Skeletor. I mean, there is that connection.
But it just wasn't what I wanted. Let's put it that way. I think there was too much material before this, and it just didn't kind of coincide with it. And I think that's part of why they missed the mark. Even in his shows, like it was always comedy that he looked like he should be like a gay CrossFit, you know, sort of oiled up mannequin of a man, and that was kind of the humor. He didn't say or do funny things. You know what I mean? Like there was almost like some sort of like pseudo homoerotic kind of element, but he was kind of supposed to be straight, and that was kind of the funny element of it, even as an older viewer. And they didn't play into the almost quiet humor. They were trying to do it more openly, and that's where I think maybe the element is as we're kind of processing this in lifetime.
You have the power to not watch this movie.
So, but if you want to see more of us, you know, we're on Apple Podcast and Spotify on Tuesdays and YouTube on Thursdays. So please give us a listen and, you know, shout out for any kind of requests. We'll definitely try to get to some of those if Brian will actually do them.
Oh my gosh. Shut up. Well, thank you so much for tuning in the episode.
Yes, for sure. So thank you to anyone who listens, and we'll catch you next time.
See you later. Bye.
Oh my God. I was just thinking about how fucking mad that shit was making me when I ranted on it. Like, it made me fucking mad.